Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Good morning. It is Friday, April 21st, 2017. Gee whiz, I don't know what's going on today. How about we do a show? I don't know how to start. There's a million things I want to tell you. It's all very exciting. Daily Coast Radio, though, I will tell you this will slow it down. Daily Coast Radio is live now. Kagro X broadcasts from a foreign and exotic island in the kitchen. I do have a kitchen island. No. I have a kitchen peninsula. Does anybody else have one of these? I don't know. All right. Well, it's very nearly an island, but it is attached at the end to one of the walls in an oblique way. So I never really thought about this. I have a kitchen peninsula, and it's a new term, and everybody should get one. I should get granite countertops to become fully coastal elite. Thank you, Bill, for starting us off with the morning tweet, as always. And I'm excited to get to all the stories today. There's a lot going on. Donald Trump right now, I believe, is having a conniption fit. It's a term not everyone will recognize. But apparently he's just found out that he's been promoting the 100-day standard for about, 6 months now. And he screwed it up, and he hasn't done anything, and now it's a crap standard, and nobody wants anything to do with it. And it's horrible, and he doesn't know where it came from. Of course, he released his own, he's been talking about the 100-day standard since forever, but now that 100 days is looming, I guess it's pissing him off. So, I don't know. If you want to follow what he's melting down about this morning, that's what it is. It's important to know what's causing him anxiety at any given moment. I gather he's in the White House still, and it's Friday, so that's pretty unusual. I imagine that means a Trump National golf outing for this weekend. Let me check the weather for you. A good professional radio program like this one will have a weather forecast for you, and I'll tell you what the Trump golf outlook is for the day. Now, today, I don't know whether he's going to get there today, but it's going to be, there's a good chance of some significant rain today in his Virginia golfing area. Tomorrow, cool, about a high of 61 degrees with a 30% chance of rain. Similar on Sunday with slightly more chance of rain, which is fantastic because the kids are camping out. So they're really going to like that. And, let's see. Yeah. So, he could go up to New Jersey. I still haven't heard whether he's headed to Trump National in, where is it? In New Jersey? I can't remember. It begins with a B. Anyway, and it's not Burlington. B, I'm trying to think through this. Oh well. It doesn't matter, except for the people who live there. I'm sorry about that. And I pass through it fairly frequently, too. And anyway, I don't know where he's going, and neither does he. He's upset about the 100 days, and it's a fantastic story all by itself. Oh, look at this. And one of the things, pointed out here, look, Josh Warren is mining his 100-day claims, as a matter of fact, as we speak. And it's, all right, so the first two nuggets here from his 100-day plan. I will direct my Secretary of the Treasury to label China a currency manipulator. That was part of the 100-day plan. That's fallen by the wayside because, of course, the cake, I guess, was so fantastic. He loved watching President Xi enjoy the beautiful chocolate cake so much that he decided they're not currency manipulators. Of course, also, the biggest story, the biggest reason he's having a fit over the 100 days is his big goal for repealing and replacing the Obamacare Act, as he calls it, in the first 100 days. And so, where do we stand? This means he is pushing for, and it's been a hell of a story just in the last day, pushing for a vote again on a revamped repeal and replace bill. He wants to see a vote middle of the week, next week, Wednesday. And there's this issue, there's this thing going on where people inside the Congress are saying, yeah, that can't happen. Of course, they have to come back. They have a very limited amount of time to keep the government up and running. And the idea of trying to push forward with a health care bill that no one has written down, No one has scored. The CBO hasn't seen it. No one's seen the legislative text again. All of the elements, really, this isn't really being discussed as much. It's, it's out there. I haven't seen anybody synthesize this, but, it's not that it hasn't occurred to people, or I just haven't read every single article all the way through. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but in addition to the policy problems with this bill and all the terrible things it would do to people if it were to become law, the same procedural problems plague this bill times two now, because you're doing it again. You've learned nothing. The fact that the text isn't available, the fact that it's going to be rushed through without being scored, without being examined, without being challenged, without being red teamed, without having an opportunity to figure out what it is and why it's, what's wrong with it and how to make things better with it, even if they fail to make things better with it, is, it's another death knell for the bill. Now, they may ram it through again this time because everybody has taken all the heat they can possibly take, I guess. But, it lines up just as poorly with possibly worse policy on top of it all. So I don't really see how they make it happen. But then again, I don't really see how Donald Trump becomes president. So I've missed a number of things. I'm constantly being amazed by the terrible things that happen that shouldn't and otherwise never could. But that's not even my biggest story today. The thing that actually excited me the most was a tweet storm of sorts. Let me pull it up here. So, my Skype home is unavailable. I'll have to reload all of that. Can I get that back? I mean, I don't have anybody scheduled to call in today, although Armando is usually rattling around somewhere on a Friday and says, I got something pissing me off. Let me call in. And absolutely, the door is open to you unless you find yourself. This is one of those weeks that you find yourself buried up to your ears or in work, but whatever. Anyway, door's always open. Friday's a good day for it. Here's what I found this morning that was so interesting. How can I pull this thing up? Okay, a tweet storm from Matthew Gertz on Twitter, and everybody's got to read it. I would say this is maybe the first time that I ever retweeted something seriously labeled as a must-read. You don't have to read it. Well, one, because I'm going to read it to you. And two, because you know a great deal of what's in it already because we've been talking about it for a long time, which is what makes it a Senate press gallery must read. I've been talking about it, so you have to talk about it. That's the way I view everything. But Matthew Gertz has done some great dot connecting on Steve Bannon and Rebecca Mercer and Breitbart and their interlocking network of organizations that I think spells out very clearly exactly why the Senate Press Gallery absolutely must reject Breitbart's application for credentials, and the credentials, of course, then lead to the hard pass for the White House. The White House can, of course, continue to give day passes if they want to Breitbart, just the way they did, and this is the whole point, with Jeff Gannon slash Jim Guckert slash Talon News all the way back in the W administration, except this time times 100. It's actually got readers and really could make a difference. Brian Beutler saw this thing, I guess, today and also started retweeting bits and pieces of it as well. He labels it a Jesus Christ, what a cesspool kind of a thread, and I have to agree. Now I can scroll back up and rejoin the current flow of Twitter and get my screen ready. I stopped it on that one because I thought that was a pretty good encapsulation of what there was in this one. All right, let me read through it. Why not? You're busy. Your hands are probably busy. Maybe you're driving somewhere. Tell me where you're going. Call in. And all right. A Media Matters review. Matthew Gertz, of course, senior fellow at Media Matters. That's how the review got done there. It's all insider stuff, you see. Media Matters review of Breitbart content. And thank God that there are people at Media Matters who are willing to do this stuff. A Media Matters review of Breitbart content finds that the website does not operate as an independent outlet. Well, we knew that. I mean, it's not independent, but in what sense do we mean independent? I mean, it's clearly not independent of this White House, It's the whole point of it as an operation was to install someone like this in the White House and operate as a propaganda arm. So it's not independent in that sense. Nor is it independent, by party or by political affiliation, ideology, etc. But that's not the standard necessarily. I mean, is Daily Kos independent by that standard? No. And we got rejected by the Senate Press Gallery. And so now so I insist that everybody be rejected by them. That's not it. But this is very clearly an enormous conflict, especially when, of course, the preferred candidate of the outlet is installed in the White House. And that's not the worst thing. I mean, that can happen anywhere. But, of course, the Steve Bannon connection is a little too gigantic to simply overlook. Anyway, let's have Matthew lay it out in his tweet storm. Did they publish anything? Yeah, I guess they did. And there's a link in the first one. Breitbart is not independent. It's the communication arm of the Mercer's empire is the title of the piece that he put together here. But let me read you the tweet storm because I like that. Because I read it. I saw it and I skimmed through it and I thought that was great. It may very well be the same thing in the article, and maybe even more coherent in the article, but it doesn't matter. I'm reading you the tweet storm. That's what I said. I'm sticking to it. I told you I would do it within 100 days, and here it goes. A press credentialing committee has expressed concern about the website sharing staff with GAI, an advocacy group. That's the Government Accountability Institute. We've heard about that one. That's another of the things. And my point has always been a little bit more about how Steve Bannon is a fake phenom. He's a political genius. That's why he's a senior advisor to Trump in the White House. That's why he's considered an important person, why people listen to him, etc. And my point has always been it's an artifice. It's manufactured by Rebecca Mercer. Why she didn't make herself the genius, I'm not really sure, but maybe she's just not that kind of person. She wants to be able to step away and go on vacation and enjoy her money. So whatever, she makes Steve Bannon do it. He wants to do this with his life. But for the credentialing committee, the people who review the request for credentials at the Senate Press Gallery are members of the traditional media. And it's always been difficult for them to define the terms under which they are going to admit new members. If you come at them from a non-traditional angle, they're very wary, they're very suspicious of it. Even if you came at them from a traditional angle, but disguised yourself well enough, what's the difference between, how would they differentiate between a newspaper that publishes in some city, some region somewhere, but that's entirely owned by one very politically minded family who use their position to manipulate the news. I mean, that describes lots of actual traditional media newspapers. So it's always a difficult standard for them to set out. But, ideally they want to see independence. They want to see openness about ownership. They want to see editorial policies in place that protect the editorial staff and the writers from political influence from the owners, if possible, although that's not always required. They want to, whatever. They have their standards, and the Breitbart model violates an awful lot of them. I mean, the one that flags them at the beginning is the one that flagged us. Well, they don't really publish. They are electronic. They're just on the internet. It doesn't even cost them anything for ink and paper, so how could we let them in? But of course, that can't be the standard either. It's not a coherent one, and it's not one that they're really particularly interested in enforcing. After all, they're happy with their addition of Huffington Post to all of this. I don't know. So maybe you have to call yourself a Post or something like that. Maybe that's all there is to it. But the Breitbart model is highly suspicious to them. So when I say, reading his first or his second tweet here, a press credentialing committee has expressed concern about the website sharing staff with GAI, an advocacy group. I mean the governing board of the Senate Press Gallery, which covers the House as well. For some reason, it's referred to as the Senate Press Gallery. The credentials control access to both the House and the Senate. I mean, it's in maybe the Senate side of the Capitol. Maybe that's all it really is to it. But a board of their membership decides on new applicants. And in rejecting the Daily Kos application, the concern was, essentially you're too tied to one political side. And the way they finally nailed it down for us was, well, you raise money for candidates on your webpage. And we don't really, but we do we certainly encourage people to donate and send them to outside processors, Act Blue pages usually. It's a slim difference, and maybe for them a difference without a distinction. Then I can get that. I mean, we do raise money for people. We tell people, hey, we endorse this candidate and we think you should too, and you don't have to, but if you want to agree with our endorsement, please go ahead and do this, and let's donate in a way that makes it obvious that the Daily Kos community is the one putting this, the other people putting this money up. We want that. So we don't want to disavow that just for press credentials. Actually, I mean, at this day and age, who even needs the press credentials? You can see everything you want to see pretty much from home. Not everything, really. You can't do interviews. There's a real value to being there, but it's not like Breitbart was going to do any insightful interviews. So whatever. They could stay home and do this. Live in Bannon's townhouse that he borrows from that Egyptian guy and write your stories. Anyway, moving on, because I told you this was an interesting tweet storm. I think I should finish it, or maybe even go to number 3 in the 20-plus tweet storm chain. Top editors Winton Hall, that's W-Y-N-T-O-N, that's not the dorm he lives in, that's the guy's name, Winton Hall, and Peter Schweitzer also have full-time jobs at GAI paying 6-figure salaries. Time out there on that one, too. I mean, talk about your wingnut welfare. This has been an issue for a long time. It's really disturbing, when I think about all the people who have done fantastic advocacy and activist work on the progressive side, who can't get a penny, for any of the work that they do. And sometimes when they do manage to put something together, it's minimal funding. And here you have people that they plucked out of college Republicans, their first job out of the box, and they're getting, $100,000 to write for Breitbart News. And, who cares whether what you write is true or has any basis in fact? Just write what you wish was true, and I'll give you $100,000. Where is that job for me? I want that. I'll tell you what I wish was. I tell you what I wish was true every day here. And I think we put together, $800 a month in contributions, which, I mean, as fantastic as it is to have some money to operate with so that we can buy some more computers and a nice microphone for Greg, and I hope we can maybe swing one for Joan sometime soon, and, a couple of bucks here and there for Scott for all the work that he puts in summarizing everything. You know what? Why don't we have $100,000 a year? That would be terrific. We don't, but we should. But we don't. I don't know. So we don't lack for millionaires and billionaires. I don't know where their money goes. I have no idea. There's a lot of people in the world. Maybe lots of activists are getting paid great. I just don't know any of them. And I mentioned, I don't know whether Winton Hall and Peter Schweitzer are recent college graduates. I think they're considerably older than that. But the girl we read about, that's probably wrong. The young woman, she is very young. We read about the other day, who is Bannon's right hand, even now, in the White House, who we had a nice profile of, and she was so wonderful and went to the University of Chicago and worked in a maybe possibly non-existent gun range to work her way through college, despite the fact that she had gone to a highly exclusive prep school in, Beverly Hills. You know the one. Can't remember her name. Doesn't matter. Anyway, the financial disclosure forms that the White House staff filed a few days ago, I think, is what sparked the second look at her. And she was making $100,000 plus, $100 and something thousand, basically right out of college. I'm producing Laura Ingraham. I'm writing at Breitbart. I'm the right hand to the White House. I don't know. It doesn't happen that way on this side. What's the other nut? O'Keefe. James O'Keefe. How much are they paying him to produce these crazy-ass videos? And he keeps getting busted every time. I mean, almost literally busted. He gets arrested on these things. And still, a couple $100,000, 6 figures for this nonsense. At least with the Macedonian teenagers, they make their money from advertising, from, wacko advertising outfits, I guess, and stealing it, skimming it off of Google Ads, which I guess I don't feel quite as bad about. I'd do that. I can't seem to make that one work either. All right. Moving on, again, we were saying top editors Winton Hall and Peter Schweitzer have full-time jobs at GAI paying 6-figure salaries. That doesn't even include whatever they're getting paid by Breitbart. And sometimes they engineer these things so that you're getting your 6 figures from GAI and Breitbart can plead poverty. We don't pay our people that much. It comes from elsewhere. We make sure they're getting that money. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, number 4 in the tweet storm, Steve Bannon previously led both organizations, and the Mercers are major funders of both. That's why we're worried about people getting 6-figure salaries at GAI and also pulling down God knows what from Breitbart. Bannon leads both of them. Mercer pays for both of them. Bannon and the Mercers also own Glittering Steel, you've heard that name before, a film production company that makes conservative documentaries. Whatever that might even mean. Who knows what a conservative documentary is? It's not factual. It doesn't use real facts or tell any serious real history. It just, there it is. We make them. And we say they're documentaries. Our review, Matthew says, finds that Breitbart is used to heavily promote GAI and Glittering Steel products. That's the issue. That's the thing that the Senate Press Gallery and the rest of us are properly concerned with. They include a chart in here, and they sort of chart out how the money flows from Robert Mercer, Rebecca Mercer, the Mercer Family Foundation, into the GAI, into Glittering Steel, and into Breitbart, and then from there to the various top-level editors at Breitbart. And it flows pretty much the way you would think, and the way we've described in numerous episodes of the show so far. So their review comports with everybody else's, but I think they've done a great job in putting it together here. Breitbart devoted this is where it really starts to get serious. Breitbart devoted more than 400 posts. 400 posts at Breitbart. And think about the reach now that Breitbart has, and the number of people who consider themselves Trump fans who actually literally define their worldview via Breitbart. If it's not Fox News or Bill O'Reilly any longer, and for a lot of people it hasn't really been Bill O'Reilly for some time. I don't think that there's much overlap between the Bill O'Reilly television watching crowd and the Breitbart reading crowd, except for maybe Trump himself, which is weird to believe. I don't think he's reading the things. He's reading headlines over there. People send him headlines. He doesn't seek them out. And then, but they corroborate one another. Anyway, Breitbart devoted more than 400 posts to promoting Schweitzer's book. You might remember his name now. Clinton Cash. Yes, the Clinton Cash book that the New York Times, remember, they featured for like 12 weeks. They were excerpting from Clinton Cash, and oh my God, and it basically was the entire motivator behind the, but her emails kind of thing. The emails, originally, I guess, started out as, oh my God, somewhere in here is the stand down order that killed everybody at Benghazi. And when they couldn't find that in there, like Whitewater, I can't find anything about the investments being corrupt. So look, an affair. What do you know? It morphed into something else. But her emails, when they couldn't find any Benghazi in her emails, they figured they would find the real story of Clinton Cash, how she would be operating a pay-for-play operation through the Clinton Foundation. Then they didn't find that, so then they figured it must be Pizzagate instead. I can't find anything incriminating, but here where he refers to, do you want to get some pizza? That can't mean pizza. It must be child molestation. Right. Because that's on your mind for no particular reason. Probably because you hate it so much and want to combat it wherever you find it. Although One might wonder about that. Breitbart devoted more than 400 posts, though, to promoting Schweitzer's book, Clinton Cash, reportedly produced with GAI research. And it's been reported in a number of places, so much so that it's pretty much basically fact at this point, because it always was fact. GAI was paying for the work. They were paying to promote Clinton Cash. They were, that was the production company for Clinton Cash, both the book and the documentary. Plus, of course, they were paying six figures to Schweitzer. It's tiptoeing around the facts to say that it was reportedly produced with GAI research, really. But okay, Matthew's just being careful. The book's PR campaign was reportedly masterminded by Breitbart managing editor Hall. That would be Winton Hall. So there was an editor at Breitbart who was also being paid by GAI, whose job it was to manage the PR campaign for GAI's book, Clinton Cash. And his brilliant idea was, I'm an editor at Breitbart. I will use Breitbart to write 400 plus articles about how awesome this book is and how earth-shattering it is and how it's a game changer and how Clinton should go to jail based on its contents. You've got to read it. It's fantastic. The New York Times, I think, produced something less than 400 posts about it, but a good number to be sure. Breitbart produced more than 100 articles on the Clinton Cash documentary, the film produced by Bannon and Mercer via Glittering Steel. So that's like 500 posts at Breitbart, all by itself. And I see everybody sort of picking up on this one. Good. Everyone should be reading this thing and sharing it with one another. 500 plus articles at Breitbart on Clinton Cash, the book, the documentary. Again, produced outside of Breitbart, but only barely outside of Breitbart, by the same people who ran Breitbart and who paid for Breitbart. Over on the right hand, they're running Breitbart. On the left hand, they're running Glittering Steel and GAI. And pretending like, look, we're getting glowing reviews for our awesome book and documentary. Really? From where? From someplace called Breitbart. Why, they're a traditional press operation. I wonder what made them so very interested in our work. It couldn't be that we're also them, could it? Well, it is, of course. All right. So next up, here's a sampling of Breitbart headlines about Clinton Cash. They are straight up PR copy in many cases, and I don't have the copy, but he illustrates the point quite amply by just giving you the headlines, and that's always that's a pretty good survey of what's happening over at Breitbart. So what did Breitbart over the years have to say to their fan base about this book and documentary, Clinton Cash? Clinton Cash, Breitbart News, and the narratives that led to the Clinton Foundation's demise. This is late in the game, of course. They're crediting themselves for the demise of the Clinton Foundation, and I guess you have to credit them too. It's shut down. And it was, for all the good it was doing, if you believe in that. I mean, I know that there's still a lot of people, probably even who listen to the show, who might have been dissuaded during the primaries from crediting the Clinton Foundation with doing anything serious at all. You should probably get over that. But, if you haven't, I don't know if I'm going to be able to convince you. But anyway, yes, they finally did have to shut the thing down to try and deal with the optics of the Clinton Foundation. And there were certainly issues, so it's not so bad that they came to the same conclusion. But I hope somebody else will pick up the work, and hopefully that will happen. The money is still out there. People who are donating to the Clinton Foundation can fund the same work elsewhere. It's just a little bit of transaction cost and trying to pick those balls up and run with them again. But quite true, they should actually credit themselves with the destruction of the Clinton Foundation. So I don't know whether these are in reverse chronological order or whatever, but this is how they're listed. Let's see. Here's another headline. Schweitzer, we're quoting. Here's what Schweitzer has to say. Why does Breitbart have, a big headline saying, listen to Schweitzer? Well, because he works at Breitbart, for one thing, and at GAI, which produced the rest of this stuff. Schweitzer, Clinton cash is the, quote, roadmap for FBI Foundation probe. So during the campaign, as it becomes clear that the FBI is probing into what went on at the Clinton Foundation just to make sure that everything is either on the up and up or is in fact as corrupt as Breitbart claims. To try to get to the bottom of this stuff, Schweitzer wants everybody to know, and Breitbart wants everybody to know that Schweitzer wants everybody to know it, that Clinton Cash, his book, is what is guiding the FBI's probe. So if you're happy about the FBI probe, credit the book. And if you want to credit the book, go spend money on the book and give that money to me. And if you want to spread yet more money around, give it to Breitbart. Give it to GAI. It's all going to me anyway. If for some reason it's embarrassing for me to ask you to send $1,000 to me, and speaking strictly as myself, it is. But if I'm them, if I'm embarrassed asking about $1,000, well, I'll tell you what, send $300 to Breitbart, which you love. And you also love, of course, the work of GAI, which produced the book, Clinton Cash. So why not reward them with $300? They're good guys, I hear. And also, how about those guys, how about those unknown fellows over at Glittering Steel who produced the documentary film? Why not reward them with $300 too? Spread it around a little bit. I know what you're thinking. You don't want to just send me $1,000. So yeah, spread the wealth. You can make if you want to help them with their transactions costs, keep things low, sort things out, you can make the check out to me, Peter Schweitzer, care of Breitbart. And the second check you should make out to me, Peter Schweitzer, care of Glittering Steel. How about this one over here? This $300 you can send to Peter Schweitzer, care of GAI. And that way everybody gets a taste. You see? What are some of the other headlines that they have here? Breitbart deal launches with a free Clinton Cash DVD offer. That's actually one of their headlines. Is newsflash, breaking. We're promoting subscriptions. You should buy one. And if you do, we'll give you a free Clinton Cash DVD because we know you're interested in it. Because we told you to be interested in it. Because we wanted you to buy it. And if you don't buy it, well, how about this? Subscribe to Breitbart and we'll send you one for free. Just so long as we get the money. It doesn't matter, right? How did they work this fantastic deal? It just so happens I've heard so much about Clinton Cash DVD. I'd love to get my hands on it. And thank God Breitbart has done the footwork necessary to make that deal happen. Behind the scenes, I don't know what's going on. Gee whiz. All I know is, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. Exclusive, Clinton Cash, a graphic novel ad shows how Hillary Clinton helped transfer U.S. uranium to Russia. Didn't, but okay. Clinton Cash passes 3.5 million views on YouTube. That's a headline. Why? Let YouTube say that. Mark Cuban attacks Clinton Cash author, ends up in epic humiliation. Okay, sure. Matt Drudge, Clinton Cash is one of the scariest movies I've seen. Clinton Cash paperback debuts at number 6 on New York Times bestseller list. White House dodges Clinton Cash questions, attacks conservative authors. Clinton Cash dominates number 1 on Facebook during Democratic National Convention. Listen, Stephen K. Bannon's epic Clinton Cash rant. Bill and Hillary, the 2 biggest grifters ever to run for president. Hello, projection. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Oh, my God. Peter Schweitzer. Media won't ask questions about Clinton Cash because they're afraid of the answers. That's always a great conservative line. Clinton Cash by Breitbart News' Peter Schweitzer. Number 3 New York Times bestseller in week 2. One of the rare instances in which they own up to the interconnections. Clinton Cash sparks global media firestorm. New York Post review of Clinton Cash blows out Bill, Hillary, and the clueless political press. Fox News reports on the tangled web of Clinton Cash. They won't be reporting on this tangled web, will they? Fox News. Oh, yes, we did that one. New York Times, Clinton Cash, most anticipated and feared book of a presidential cycle. So, yeah, they're loving it over there at New York Times, too. Matt Gertz continues, as a conservative outlet, it makes sense for Breitbart to devote substantial resources to Clinton Cash. That's true, despite the fact, of course, that they wrote it and they basically are and or own the companies that are promoting it and selling it. It's a huge conflict of interest. But, like you said, as a conservative outlet, it's clear that they're going to have a readership that's going to be interested in Clinton Cash. It's not necessarily the case that they could promote and sell as many units of a book that wouldn't appeal to their base, right? But he points out it has happened in other instances. It did happen again, right? Breitbart devoted nearly 24 articles to boosting the glittering steel-produced documentary Torchbearer last year. Everyone knows Torchbearer, right? No, they don't. Matthew's next tweet, no one saw this movie. Press from other conservative outlets was slim. Breitbart, though, made it a priority because it was a Bannon-Mercer film. The boss wants to move units. He wants dollars. She wants dollars. They want to make money. But the movie sucks. No one cares about it. It's crap. It's not interesting. Clinton Cash is where it's at. Yeah, well, we've played that one out. Besides which, we have another, we put money into this thing. We want to make that money back. So we, promote it nonetheless. What did they say? 24 articles boosting Torchbearer because Bannon and Mercer put it together. Perhaps the clearest conflicts of interest involve Winton Hall, Breitbart's managing editor, and a relative unknown. And they link here to the Media Matters piece. Breitbart's managing editor used the site to what? To promote something. To promote his PR clients. Isn't that interesting? Hall is a longtime Schweitzer associate and communications strategist for GAI, which paid him $600,000 from 2012 to 2015. So yes, that's a couple of years, but $600,000, there's not that many years to divide that by. So his main job, or one of his main jobs anyway, communications strategist for Government Accountability Institute. Also managing editor for Breitbart.com. He's getting $100,000 a year from each of them, pretty much. And his job is use Breitbart to promote, I'm such a success. I get the big bucks over at GAI as their communications strategist because look at the results I produce. Breitbart, one of the biggest conservative alt-right outlets there is all over our stuff. They can't get enough of it. Amazingly, the bosses, such as they were at GAI, said, you're right, you deserve a huge raise, as if they didn't understand, of course, that they were all the good press was coming from Breitbart. Of course they understood that because they owned and operated Breitbart. Everybody knew exactly what they were doing. I'm paying you to be a genius publicist guy, and I think you are one, even though all you do is use our other publication outlet to promote the one here, where your job is to get promotion. It's amazing. But whatever, Rebecca Mercer is sitting on billions of dollars, and she's looking to waste it in this particular way. To her, it means success, I guess. She's buying political influence this way. She's making a media fakery machine, and it's not like a brilliant idea that she came up with either. It's already a working model. It's just that it's all paid for from one source, I guess, is the unique twist on it. The slightly more legitimate take on it actually harkens back to a Newt Gingrich tactic that he liked to use when he was in the House. But you have to credit him for at least a little bit more gumption in this one. He loved to play members of the press against one another. That is, he would find someone somewhere would bite on a story, and if he couldn't get a major national newspaper to bite on a story or his spin on a story, he'd go, it didn't matter to him. He'd go local, he'd go regional, whatever he could, and if he could only get a regional or local paper to pick up the story, he'd then take that back up to regional or national papers and say, you're getting scooped on this story. But he used to love to send press clips of stories he was able to generate to other press outlets and other reporters and say, you're getting scooped on this. And as the numbers mounted, it usually pressured other writers and other outlets into saying, this is now becoming a story we have to catch up with. And you build your way to national coverage of a story this way. Breitbart and Bannon and Mercer can short-circuit that process. If you were wondering how they came from out of nowhere in a couple of years, turned the ludicrous idea of Breitbart and his big new, what did he call it? Big media, big journalism. That was it. And turning that into what has now become Breitbart, the agenda-setting alt-right publication that has people up and down the chain of command in the White House, for God's sake. How did that happen so quickly? And the answer is they short-circuited the process by simply having Rebecca Mercer put money into the operation so that they could get the clips that they needed to generate the heat for the stories that would make other outlets pick them up. And they didn't have to do the footwork that Newt Gingrich did, schmoozing somebody, trying to get a local paper to pick up on a story so that he could show the clip to a regional publication, so that he could get them to do a story, so that he could show the regional and local clips to a national paper and guilt them into doing a story. They just simply did all the stories and then said, look at all the attention that Clinton Cash is getting. Breitbart is all over it. And you know who's reading? Well, all the people reading Breitbart. You have to cover this. And it worked. So, where did we leave off? Hall is Winton Hall is the biggest conflict here in all this, right? Managing editor, relatively unknown guy, but he also is a communications strategist and PR person, and his big client is GAI, who paid him $600,000 to publicize their products, which he did by using his position as managing editor at Breitbart to direct Breitbart writers to write as much as possible about GAI products. Matthew Gertz over at Media Matters. You remember Matthew? This is Matthew's tweet storm, right? Hi, Arlo. How you doing? I went through all 1,382 posts, Matthew says, with Winton Hall's byline on them. Disgusting, but it had to be done. 152 of them, so over 10% of the 1,300-something posts that he's got with a byline. 152 of them promote Schweitzer or GAI research products. 10% of his work product at Breitbart was generating stories to help him get paid for being the PR guy at GAI. Now, but, in addition to just revealing, how kind of disgusting and underhanded all of this is, remember that underlying this whole thing is that the people at the Senate press gallery are stroking their chins wondering, is this a legitimate press outlet? Is this traditional media enough for us to do? Are they independent? Or do the managing editors use their positions to force Breitbart writers to feed Breitbart readers press releases about products which the Breitbart ownership and leadership have investment interests in? Right? That's the sort of thing that would ring huge alarm bells for them. Instead of actually just saying, let's go find out what the news is. We'll dig, we'll push, we'll ask questions, but we let the news happen and we report it. Versus we invent news because when our preferred stories become news, we make money because it's news about these products. That's the sort of thing that the press gallery would say, no effing way to. But they haven't been able to quite figure this out. They haven't sleuthed this out enough to just say, just stop wasting our time. No more review of your applications. No, you're not getting credentials from us. You can get into the White House. Your man is there now. He can give you day passes. Don't look to us. We're not going to legitimize you. Here it is. Here's where we'll put it. We're going to lay it on the line for you. Greg wants it this way, I'm sure. Here's step one in the traditional media's recovery program. If you need to figure out how to not normalize Trump, we can put it for you in very simple terms that you're used to using and can absolutely understand. Start by not normalizing the Breitbart outlet. There's no reason in the world for you to do so. And in a small way, in an indirect way, it will help you reduce the normalization of Trump, because their whole mission is, if not necessarily the normalization of Trump, but certainly the trumpeting of his agenda and the celebration of his less than legitimate presidency, sets the table for many of the rest of you. Not you guys, but the members of the press and Trump fans everywhere, to pretend that he's a normal guy and really ought to be president. What happened to my signal from my desktop computer here? I have no idea why it would suddenly switch over to no signal and take away my view of the tweet deck. Let's see if we can get this thing back. Okay, anyway, so we left off, just again for the 15th time from the tweet storm, by saying Matthew Gertz went through all 1,300 plus posts with Winton Hall's byline, 152 of them promoting Schweitzer or GAI research products. That doesn't include Breitbart News bylines, where they simply don't credit any particular writer but just say Breitbart News. Doesn't include Breitbart News bylines that he may have written and tried to disguise his fingerprints by simply saying it was Breitbart News, or pieces that he may have assigned to others. That's always a possibility too. As managing editor, he can assign, whatever lowly writer they just hired for $100,000. You write about this GAI product or glittering steel product. I don't want to be the one that does it all the time. I don't want to make it that obvious. So, here are some of those headlines, by the way. If they read like PR copy, it's because he's paid by GAI to write PR copy. And he's also paid by Breitbart, which is handy, because if you worry that, well, if we just hand out PR copy, just give out press releases from Glittering Steel and GAI to Breitbart, they might not think it's interesting enough to write about. Oh, I know what just went off. Let's see. Hopefully it didn't take everything else with it. I bet we rocked the power cord here. Maybe that's what did it. All right, well, we'll have to fix that later on. Anyway, luckily we still have our laptop operating and can go with that. So, what headlines did he have generated at Breitbart, right? So we were just saying, as PR guy for GAI, he obviously will write PR copy for them. The difficult part is if you send that out to an independent news platform, they'll say, okay, good story, I want to run with it. I might even want to almost run it verbatim, but I'm going to look stupid if all I do is reprint their press release. I gotta either do some additional reporting or at least paraphrase what they sent me. Because if I don't, my editor will fire me for plagiarism, if nothing else. Not to mention the fact that I'm compromising the independence of our own publication by plagiarizing somebody else's PR copy. That's not only plagiarism, it's a failure of the news mission of our outlet. But what if your boss says do it anyway because he's being paid to do exactly that? Well, then you get headlines like these. New York Times. Breitbart editor's book sparks renewed attention to insider trading. Victory. Breitbart editor's battle against insider trading forces president's hand. Report. Obama spends more time on golf than economy, if you were wondering where that idea among conservatives came from. Bombshell report sparks international flood of tips on foreign online donations. Watchdog group. Obama blunders bagged millions in auto bailout. GAI says 4-part plan needed to keep foreign cash out of U.S. elections. That was one of the big GAI products, that somehow foreign donors were flooding the Clintons and Obamas with campaign cash. Tonight, 9 p.m. EDT on FNC, Fox News Channel. Sean Hannity special, Boomtown 2, The Business of Food Stamps. Extortion author fires back at Boehner's office over toll booth controversy. I don't even know what all of these little pieces are necessarily, but Matthew Gertz recognizes them as GAI products. These are stories that GAI was tasked with developing and injecting into the news stream. So that's apparently sort of the way it works. Like if it is something of a brilliant strategy, right? Certainly Breitbart itself is in the business of generating sometimes fake news to be used by conservatives to attack Democrats and progressives, right? Well, just make up the most ridiculous headline you can about something and just put it in Breitbart. We don't have to really answer to anybody. Our editors are crazy. We don't have to worry about getting this garbage past our editors. Our editors are the ones who are this nuts, so we're going to get it past them. But because we're trying to be journalists, people will ask, what's your source for XYZ every once in a while? And we ought to be able to say something other than our imagination. But what if it really is just our imagination and that's embarrassing to us? Well, how about this situation? How about this? Right? Cash me outside. How about that? Here's the way it'll work. What if an outside panel of experts said it? What if an outside thing that sounded like a think tank said it? What if it was the Government Accountability Institute? How can you argue with that? Government accountability Institute. Three fantastic things. Government, everyone knows what that is. Government accountability, even better. Everyone loves government accountability. And who knows more about government accountability than an institute called the Government Accountability Institute? It's an institute, for God's sake. It's practically an institution, one might say. You can see how this very easily becomes outside experts say this. It's not just Breitbart making it up. Why, we do plenty of that over here at Breitbart. We admit that. But we didn't have to make this one up. This came from, well, this one we made up in another location. And we faxed it from that location to this location and then read the fax and said, stop the presses. Scoop. Look what I've discovered. I just got the greatest tip from myself. Let's run this story. Oh, it's another one of those crazy stories you guys at Breitbart made up. No. Our source is unimpeachable. The GAI told us all of this. The GAI? Does anybody stop to say, what's that? Who is it? Who said it over there? Oh, I don't know. Some genius named me. Well, the very next tweet in the tweet storm, and it's a hell of a tweet storm. You can see I'm going on an hour on this thing. The next tweet, it gets worse. Can you believe it? In hour 2, I'll reveal how it gets worse. Breitbart managing editor Hall also owns a ghostwriting business with political and corporate clients. Now, he doesn't disclose who his clients are, so it's impossible to tell if he uses Breitbart to promote them. But I found one case where he clearly did. In 2014, he co-wrote Holocaust survivor and tailor Martin Greenfield's book, Measure of a Man. Now, that's not an awful thing to do, right? You want to help a Holocaust survivor co-write a book, besides which he's a tailor, so, you could get some nice suits out of it. So here it is, a memoir, Measure of a Man. A memoir from Auschwitz survivor to president's tailor. Not just the tailor, he's the president's tailor. I'm not sure the president of what, but probably the United States is what he means. Here's the cover of the book, Martin Greenfield with Winton Hall. So, what's going on with this book? In the 3 days following the book's publication, Breitbart published 6 stories on the book. None disclosed Hall's role in it. Although, if you look at the cover, it does say with Winton Hall. But we don't know what the deal was between them, and apparently They just say, this fantastic book by Martin Greenfield is just the best. It's written so well. Whoever helped him with it must be a genius, I guess. I don't think they got quite that cute about it. 2 of the stories, though, ran on the front page, calling Greenfield, quote, the most interesting man in the world. And he might be, but, well, gee whiz, if you're also being paid to do his PR, that's a hell of a line. Look what I got for you, Martin. Can you believe the headlines you're getting at Breitbart? Assuming he has no idea that the guy also works at Breitbart. I don't really know. Maybe he does, and that's why he hired him. I don't know. So 2 of the stories ran on the front page, calling Greenfield the most interesting man in the world. Here's the headline itself. New Holocaust memoir recounts Nazis using boy for target practice. Which must have been awfully disturbing to the Breitbart readers because they're Nazis. But anyway. Oh, or maybe they thought it was super exciting. Hooray! He was using a boy for target practice. That's terrific. I'd love to read this book about that so I can cheer them on as they try to shoot this young boy. They're odd people in the alt-right. Okay, anyway, next up, 5 of the stories that, how many do we have here? 6 stories on the book, right? 5 of the stories were bylined Breitbart News. That helps us solve that other mystery, right? So Winton Hall, if they're going to run a picture, for instance, or people are going to say, I'm going to go to Amazon right now using this link that will give 10% of the sale or whatever it is, the affiliate, thing is, to Breitbart. I'm going to buy this fantastic book so I can read about how fun it was to shoot at little boys for target practice because I'm an alt-right Nazi. I can do that, right? But if you happen to notice that the review that says this book by the most interesting man in the world is so fantastic you have to buy it now by Winton Hall. And then you click and you go through and you see the cover of the book over in Amazon and it says, with Winton Hall on there. You might go, oh, jeez. Am I being suckered here? Is there going to be a story in here? Are you telling me that there's not going to be a story about shooting at boys in this? Because I'm going to be really pissed if this isn't in here. That was what I was counting on. Whatever the emotion may be, it might turn some light bulbs on. So in order to prevent that from happening, Breitbart News is the writer of today's story about how this book is the most fantastic thing since sliced bread, and the authors of it are both awesome dudes. The 6th story out of 6 about this book was a Q&A written by Winton Hall. That is to say, he wrote the questions for the author, who's his PR client outside of Breitbart, right? So gee whiz, Breitbart reviews this book as the most fantastic thing ever, the author as the most interesting man in the world, and to prove it, here's a Q&A with him, published by me. Also, I wrote the questions, but also that guy pays me to make him look good. But wait till you see the results of our Q&A. Holy cow. Amazing. Anyway, let's see. I think that's probably, is that the wrap of the tweet storm? I think there's more, because that was just number 23, and I recall seeing number 24 on, for instance, the piece retweeted by Brian Beutler. Let's see. I'm going to have to, there, okay, so here's the retweet. Breitbart is not, so I guess that's, number 24, I guess, is just the conclusion here. Breitbart is not operating as an independent entity, and the Senate Press Gallery should reject its application, which is certainly my conclusion as well. To sum up there, then, top Breitbart editors used the site as the communications arm of their other non-profit or for-profit clients, and therefore it's not independent enough for the Senate Press Gallery to justify credentialing them. Largely known to us, we've been documenting the connections between them all, but I think the way Matthew puts it and the way it's illustrated in this tweet storm and probably in the article itself that accompanies all of this, Breitbart is not an independent. It's the communications arm of the Mercer's Empire. really puts a fine point on it with specific examples of the kind of interplay and corruption that went on between the players in this interlocking directorate. Well done. Now, the article itself seems to be divided into very easily digestible parts, too. I highly recommend the format he's used here. He states the conclusion right up the top. The Breitbart.com serves as the communications arm of a web of nonprofit and for-profit entities owned or supported by hedge fund billionaire Robert Mercer and his daughter Rebecca. The conservative website shares staff with those organizations and regularly promotes their work. White House Chief Strategist Stephen Bannon was executive chairman of both Breitbart and the conservative research organization Government Accountability Institute, GAI, from 2012 to 2016. Breitbart managing editor Winton Hall and senior editor-at-large Peter Schweitzer also serve as GAI's communications strategist and president, respectively. The Mercers are part owners of Breitbart, and their foundation is GAI's primary funder. The committee that handles congressional press credentialing is currently reviewing Breitbart's claims of editorial independence in response to the website's bid for permanent credentials. The committee has to this point denied Breitbart's request and has expressed concern about Breitbart's practice of sharing key staff with GAI and its connections to the Mercers, which, remember, they tried to hide in their initial interview. The guy who's currently at the helm of day-to-day operations, whose name I can't remember, who appeared before the committee when they were questioning Breitbart about whether or not they should give them the credentials. Remember that he refused initially to disclose the ownership of Breitbart. Who owns you? Who pays for your operations? I'd rather not say. Oh, really? That's usually a pretty good red flag right there. Anyway, the committee that handles them, of course, currently reviewing this stuff and reviewing all of the ownership connections. A Media Matters review of the website, which I just basically read to you, finds that the concerns are justified. Breitbart regularly promotes the research and films generated by its owners and top editors' other projects. In hundreds of articles over the past 6 years, Breitbart's reporters have produced what amounts to press release copy for GAI, highlighting its findings, aggregating stories about politicians responding to GAI's reports, and posting videos of GAI leaders who are also Breitbart editors discussing their work on television. The conflicts of interest don't stop with GAI. Bannon and the Mercers also co-founded and own the film production company Glittering Steel. Breitbart's editorial resources have also been used to promote that firm's documentaries. This intermingling of news, of private news and nonprofit organizations culminated in the production and promotion of Clinton Cash, the 2015 anti-Clinton book authored by Peter Schweitzer, reportedly based on research he led at GAI. As Bannon himself explained in a 2015 interview, Breitbart was a key cog in the Clinton Cash rollout strategy, producing more than 400 articles covering every aspect of the book. Glittering Steel then turned the book into a documentary produced by Bannon, Schweitzer, and Rebecca Mercer that was also heavily promoted by Breitbart. And just to pause there for a second, I mean, it's no surprise, I guess, that they produced the book and produced the movie, but note that they produced them from different operations, GAI versus Glittering Steel. And it's even kind of, I guess, questionable, like Clinton Cash, the book. Oh, Peter Schweitzer says, I wrote that. Well, yes, you wrote it, but all the information in it was developed by GAI. GAI should have said, we wrote the book, but they chose to do it a different way. And it's a little bit weird to say an institute wrote a book, so they put an author on it. No big deal there, I guess, except that he's using nonprofit organizations' money to do all the research to write a book which he intended to publish for profit. But that was a secondary issue for it, I'm sure. They really just wanted to get the story out there. But why is it interesting that one entity does the book and one entity does the movie? It's because you can go around now saying, well, I wrote this book, Clinton Cash, and it's really fantastic and reveals so much, and it's really, Drudge says it's the scariest book he ever read. Interesting. Okay. Well, maybe that doesn't prove to me, as some sort of skeptical outsider, that it's really all that awesome a book. For instance, I don't know you, and I do know Matt Drudge, and I think he's a nut. Well, what about this? My book is so good, it's being turned into a major motion picture, or rather, a documentary. It's so intriguing, so powerful, so compelling, that a production company has said, we can't wait to produce a movie based on this. We think millions of people will see it who don't have time for the book or prefer the movie format. Just so we can reach so many more people with a film. We just think that there's fantastic profit potential in this. And after all, we're a for-profit production company. We would only make a movie if we thought we could make millions on it, right? It's the free market saying they want this information. Right, exactly. So, you write a best-selling novel or whatever, everybody loves to say, now, soon to be a major motion picture. That's how goddamn good this book is. It's going to be a major motion picture. It's a major award you're going to get here. Right? Okay. Is it less convincing, though, if the top Hollywood executives who see the profit potential in your book are really you and your buddies? Disguised, you're like three toddlers in a trench coat pretending you're a production company? A little bit. It could be a little weird, right? So how about we just don't tell anybody that? We call it Glittering Steel instead of GAI Films. That would be too revealing. So, where were we? The intermingling, etc., etc. Breitbart says that, or Bannon himself says Breitbart is a key cog in the rollout strategy, and so it is. Hall and Schweitzer have additional conflicts of interest outside GAI. They also own communications firms, multiple, which offer their ghostwriting and public relations services to corporate and political clients. While these firms do not disclose their clients, Media Matters has identified at least that one case about the Holocaust book, right? At every turn, this web of financial interests created unparalleled journalistic ethics quandaries that refute Breitbart's claims that the site functions as a news organization independent from other groups. It doesn't. Not only is it Rebecca Mercer and Steve Bannon's own personal PR machine, it's also been given over almost entirely to the Trump administration. What point is there in credentialing a news organization to cover Congress and the White House as Trump's PR operation? They already have that. This would just be the ability. I mean, it's one thing when Spicer comes out and asserts XYZ, or Kellyanne Conway, or God help us, Hope Hicks. How does she do it? Asserts whatever it is on behalf of the administration. But the millions of idiots who still read Breitbart and think it's a news organization will now say, I don't know, Spicer said it and I have my doubts, because after all, that's his job. He has to say flattering things about the president. But I read it in the news. Where do you get your news? Breitbart, an independent news organization. Granted, I understand they have a certain slant, but they corroborate what the White House says. Well, but they are what the White House says. The White House reads Breitbart aloud from the podium, and, it goes around in circles. You don't see that? Well, most people don't dig any deeper than, I read what I read, man. Even I have difficulty sometimes remembering, well, who wrote that article? What was the outlet? What are the connections here? Did that person, okay, they're a journalist, that's great. Did they used to work for that person? Sometimes that happens. It's supposed to be disclosed, but are they, they're barely disclosing anything over here. They didn't even want to tell the press gallery who owned Breitbart. So, let's get back to this one here. At every turn, this web of financial interest created unparalleled journalistic ethics quandaries that refute Breitbart's claims that the site functions as a news organization independent from other groups. And they claim that for a number of reasons, not just for their own credibility, but right now, immediately, so that they can be credentialed. You can't get credentialed if you're not a news organization independent from other groups. And for us, for Daily Kos, it was enough that we said, we like this person for office. You should go to their Act Blue page and give them money. That's too much of a connection to other groups. That rendered us less than independent from other groups. This operation, are you kidding me? They're about to credential this one. I hope not. I hope that this Media Matters story, convinces them that it would be reckless for their own interests to credential someone like this. In this story, based on a review of existing articles about his web of interests, federal tax filings, White House disclosure reports, film databases, corporate websites, and hundreds of Breitbart posts, Media Matters reveals the organizations, the players, how Breitbart's shared staff threatens its credentials bid, how the Mercer-funded right-wing behemoth created the book and film Clinton Cash, and what's behind Clinton Cash, Breitbart's web of self-dealing, oh no, and conflicts of interest. And each one of those is a clickable section of all of this. I highly recommend taking a look. I guess I'm going to be drawn into the article itself as well as the tweet storm, because believe it or not, there's even more juicy detail and jumping off points for further discussion as I read through this. So the organizations we know, Breitbart.com, Government Accountability Institute, and Glittering Steel. And that's just a few of them. Those are the ones that they're going to focus on. The money. That comes next under the section of the players. The money in this, Robert and Rebecca Mercer. And lots of clips, many of which we've read in the past, that I think here we can use their very handy bullet points and bolding to give you the headlines that you need so that, we don't get too bogged down here. Who are Robert and Rebecca Mercer? You know all about them. We got here, they're major right-wing donors. They made their money through hedge funds. Lots of links here to a Newsweek article, Washington Post stories, which we've probably hit along the way. The Mercers have deep ties to President Trump. Again, this time linked to the Atlantic piece, greatagain.gov, their website as well. They're partial owners of Breitbart News. We know about that, also as reported in USA Today and Washington Post. The Mercer Family Foundation, which Rebecca Mercer directs and Robert Mercer's money supports, is the primary funder of GAI. Primary funder. Sources for that, Washington Post, Bloomberg, and GAI's own IRS filings. Rebecca Mercer is the chairwoman of the board of directors at GAI, that reported by Bloomberg Politics and GAI itself, of course. And the Mercers co-founded and are partial owners of Glittering Steel as well. Gee whiz. The mastermind in all this, to accompany the money, Steve Bannon. Stephen Bannon advises the Mercers on their political spending, frequently leads the organizations they back, including Breitbart, GAI, and Glittering Steel as well. So, maybe he's the most brilliant guy in all of this, in the sense that he's what he's worked out for himself. He advises the Mercers on how to spend their money, and his advice is spend it on things that I would like to do and pay me to do them. That's pretty good. I'd like that talent. Bannon was, of course, executive chairman of Breitbart. He was chairman of the GAI. He was chairman of Glittering Steel and now still owns part of the company. He's the political advisor, as we mentioned, to the Mercers, who recommended him to Trump, of course. Bannon turned Breitbart into an alt-right cesspool. We all know about that. Here they're citing Media Matters' own work and that of the New Yorker as well. For some of you, you're probably wondering about that, because back in the big journalism days, Breitbart himself, Andrew Breitbart, was, I guess, always a sort of a proto-alt-right type of figure. But we weren't talking about things in terms of the alt-right back when he was alive. And thank God he's not anymore. I'm happy to say. I'm perfectly willing to own up to that. But, in the wake of his death, there was kind of a noticeable shift, and it wasn't so much about big journalism anymore. That whole thing fell by the wayside. But anyway, in case you were wondering about the shift, those articles cited here might help you with that one. It says here, by the way, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Breitbart over the past few years made a noticeable shift toward embracing ideas on the extremist fringe of the conservative right, racist ideas, anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant ideas, all key tenets making up an emerging racist ideology known as the alt-right. The propagandist in our players section, of course, would be Peter Schweitzer, editor-at-large at Breitbart since 2013, president of GAI after its founding, longtime conservative activist. Schweitzer worked for George W. Bush's White House as a speechwriting consultant, advised, you'll love this one, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin on foreign policy, Putin and his head rearing here. Helped then Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal write his autobiography, and we know how well he did with that one. We hate volcano monitoring. And served as a fellow of the conservative Hoover Institution, which sucks, but he has headlined Republican Party fundraisers and regularly addresses conservative groups and conferences. Schweitzer is a principal at the ghostwriting shop that he owns with the Washington Post's Mark Thiessen. How do you like that? Schweitzer and Mark Thiessen, a former Bush speechwriter, founded Oval Office Writers, LLC in 2009. The firm states that it helps prepare speeches, keynotes, and congressional testimony and provides fundraising help, among other services. The firm does not identify its clients on its website, making it impossible to tell if Schweitzer has used his Breitbart platform to promote its interests. He has. Wink, wink. Schweitzer has a history of producing shoddy journalism. Reporters and fact-checkers have excoriated Schweitzer for massive factual problems. The following is how journalists describe Schweitzer's work prior to 2015. Incorrect, inaccurate, bogus, a fatal shortcoming in Journalism 101. The facts didn't stand up. These are all little blurbs, little individual quotes, I guess, grabbed from write-ups. Unfair and inaccurate, specious argument, there was nothing there, suspicious, facts don't fit. It goes on for some time. And perhaps a little bit unfair. I mean, it's certainly rotten cherry picking in a way, but, you have to do something to generate this kind of disparagement. Schweitzer has also promoted his other interests in more than 20% of his Breitbart posts since 2012. Over the past 5 years, Schweitzer referenced his own books or his GII organization in 12 of his 53 Breitbart posts, according to a Media Matters analysis. The communications guru in all this, that job goes to Winton Hall, managing editor of Breitbart since 2013, a communications strategist for GAI, as we mentioned, and also a professional ghostwriter, and also using Breitbart to promote his clients without any disclosure. And I guess there's a couple other examples in here, too. Hall is the owner of Winton Hall and Company, you would never guess, a celebrity ghostwriting and branding agency whose clients have included an unnamed list of NBA stars, White House presidential officials, Hollywood and Bollywood producers and movie stars. I'm glad he got the Bollywood guys in there. Fortune 500 CEOs, college presidents, Heisman Trophy winners, presidential candidates, NCAA Hall of Fame coaches, top motivational speakers, TV celebrities, and international fashion models. Melania. He also works for Schweitzer's Oval Office Writers. Breitbart resources have been used to promote at least one of Hall's ghostwriting clients, the Martin Greenfield book mentioned earlier. Next section, how Breitbart's shared staff with GAI threatened its bid for credentials. I think we got pretty much most of the background here. We'll read the bullet points. Breitbart seeking permanent congressional press credentials. The committee is concerned with the shared staff with GAI, whose work is not, quote, in line with the committee's guidelines for credentialing. And this excerpted, I guess, from their letter and reported by Politico. Of concern to the committee was the presence on the masthead of at least two people, senior editor-at-large Peter Schweitzer and managing editor Winton Hall, who are both also part of Mercer-funded Government Accountability Institute, et cetera, et cetera. I guess they picked up on that pretty quickly. So I don't know. Maybe the outlook is actually pretty good for the right outcome here. How did the Mercer-funded right-wing Death Star, as they put it, create Clinton cash? Let's see if there's anything to mine out of this one. Schweitzer authored the anti-Clinton hit book, obviously. The Clinton Cash book was built on GAI's research. And Breitbart editors Hall and Bannon directed a media strategy in which Clinton Cash's details were fed to mainstream outlets, not Breitbart. That is also an interesting part of this whole situation that I haven't gotten a great rundown on yet. Let's take a look at this one. As Bloomberg Businessweek relates, in their roles with GAI, Bannon and Hall mapped out a strategy that involved feeding details of their projects to major news outlets, not to the one at which they work. They also did that, but what else did they do outside of that that made Clinton Cash a nearly mainstream issue? Hall's job is to transform dry think tank research into vivid, viral reality political dramas that can be unleashed on a set schedule like summer blockbusters. It worked, too. We work very long and very hard to build a narrative, storyboarding it out months in advance, he says. I'm big on this. We're not going public until we have something so tantalizing, even if they have to make it up, that any other editor with a serious publication would be an idiot to pass it up and give a competitor the scoop. By the way, does that strategy sound familiar to the Newt Gingrich strategy I described to you earlier? The reason GAI does this is because it's the secret to how conservatives can hack the mainstream media. That's why Newt did it. Hall has distilled this, too, into a slogan. Anchor left, pivot right. It means that weaponizing a story onto the front page of the New York Times, the left, is infinitely more valuable than publishing it on Breitbart.com. We don't look at the mainstream media as enemies because we don't want our work to be trapped in the conservative ecosystem, says Hall. We live and die by the media. Every time we're launching a book, I'll build a battle map that literally breaks down by category every headline we're going to place, every op-ed Peter is going to publish. Some of it is a wish list, but it usually gets done. That according to a Bloomberg Businessweek report of October 8th, 2015. The GAI team deployed that strategy with Clinton Cash. The New York Times and the Washington Post were among the outlets that, quote, made exclusive agreements. You remember that this happened? I believe you did. Made exclusive agreements with Schweitzer for early access to his opposition research so they could read the book and report on its findings before publication. Now, in hindsight, this is astonishing. At the time, it was rather astonishing, too. A lot of people got it, but I don't think they quite got it at the New York Times and the Washington Post. They made an exclusive deal with a guy who happens to have a point of view, yes, but his research is backed by the Government Accountability Institute. It would have been, I'm sure, a non-starter if Breitbart.com had approached them with this deal. They would have laughed in their faces. But at no time do they figure out Schweitzer, the author of the book, works for Breitbart.com. He's here on behalf of the Government Accountability Institute, though, so maybe he's wearing a different hat. Should we take a look at who runs the Government Accountability Institute? Well, who's this person? Stephen Bannon. I've never heard of him. I wonder what he does. Click, 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 clack, 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 Google, Google, Google. Wow, he is the executive executive publisher of Breitbart.com. Who we would never have accepted as a partner in this. And yes, we just figured out that Peter Schweitzer also works there, but he wears many hats. One of them is the GAI. Okay, oh my goodness, look, everybody at GAI wears the exact same two hats. Maybe a few others, but isn't this strange? What a weird thing I've just discovered. Who is at Breitbart.com would be unacceptable as a partner. We don't want anything to do with Breitbart.com, and that means Stephen Bannon, their publisher. That means Schweitzer, their senior editor at large. That means Winton Hall, their senior editor. That means Rebecca Mercer, their bankroll, their owner. We don't want anything to do with those people. But on the other hand, this book, though, we can still sneak it in under the wire because it does come from the very important sounding Government Accountability Institute. Granted, that's an operation run by Stephen Bannon, Rebecca Mercer, Winton Hall, and Peter Schweitzer. But the point is that it has a different name. It's not called Breitbart.com. I don't know. It could be just a coincidence. Maybe we should roll with it. I don't know. Maybe we should give it a couple weeks thought. Can I sleep on it and think about it? Well, you can, but I got to tell you, this story is so hot, it's just not going to be contained. It's going to burst out. This book is going to become a bestseller, and let me just tell you something. Between you and me, this is already being explored as a major motion picture. Really, a major motion picture? You mean like Tom Hanks going to produce it? Well, it's a documentary. I mean, obviously, this is about true facts, because we wouldn't be bringing you a book that wasn't about true facts, right? What do we got? I mean, come on. What do you think we are here? Gee whiz. Hey, is it hot in here? Holy cow. Anyway, it's being turned into a major motion picture, a documentary, as I said. Wow, who's got the rights to it? Is it, I don't know, give me a production company. I'm that dumb. I don't know. I was about to say Pixar, because all I know is the kids watch Pixar movies. They wouldn't be doing it. But, who's gonna be doing it? Which entertainment company? It's a fantastic, beautiful, just the best people. They do terrific work. Glittering Steel, LLC. It's great because it's glittering. And also steel. Everyone loves steel. Chinese steel. I can't get enough. Glittering Steel. Wow, I'm not sure. I can't remember. Are they the ones that say "Sit Ubu Sit" at the end of the TV shows? No, that's not them. Are they the ones with the DreamWorks one with the kid on the moon? No, that's not it. Bad Robot. Is that them? No, I'm remembering all my production companies now. Glittering Steel. Well, it doesn't bring anything to mind, but anyway, I'm sure it's fantastic because motion picture. So, can I? That'd be really interesting. Could we see an advanced copy of that? Who's running things over at Glittering Steel? I'd love to ask them some questions about it. John Barron, and it never makes its way to the desks of the editors at the Washington Post or the New York Times because investigative reporting that the leadership of Glittering Steel is Stephen Bannon, Rebecca Mercer, Peter Schweitzer, Winton Hall. Nothing registers. Let's make the deal. Let's go ahead. Clinton Cash, after all, we all hate Clinton, right? So she's so untrustworthy. Let's read the book and accept it. I think it's going to work. Bannon and Breitbart used as a weapon. Bannon used Breitbart as a weapon to push the research that he directed at GAI. That's the basic play here. Bannon told Bloomberg Businessweek, with Clinton Cash, Breitbart never really broke a story. But you go to Breitbart.com and we've got 20 things. We're linking to everybody else's stuff. We're aggregating. We'll pull stuff from the left. Indeed, Breitbart has published at least 420 articles that reference Clinton Cash. But in many cases, you should point out, well, it's not us making the stuff up or even excerpting from Clinton Cash. We're just telling you that other newspapers are excerpting from it, so that must be lending it legitimacy. It's not that we believe everything that GAI and Glittering Steel tell us, even though they're us. I'm just reporting on the fact that the New York Times seems to believe it. The Washington Post appears to believe it. Even though they wouldn't believe it if we told it to them, they believe it when we put on our other hats. That's the key. Fantastic. So there they go. Bloomberg told Bannon that with stuff like this, we didn't break the story, but you go and you look and we've got it all. We're just not the ones producing the work. Other people are doing that. So, what are among the 420 articles that reference Clinton Cash? There's 15 referencing Clinton Cash that were published on April 20th, the day after. What happened April 20th? That was yesterday. Of course, we're talking about April 20th, 2016? That's the day after the New York Times reported that the book would be, quote, the most anticipated and feared book of a presidential cycle still in its infancy. Maybe that was 2015. There were 97 articles over at Breitbart referencing the book that were published from April 20th, 2015 through May 4th, 2015. That's some critical period. That's the 2 weeks leading up to the book's publication. And another 61 articles published from May 5th to June 4th. One extra month. The book after the book's publication. So a huge media blitz over there when the book comes out. As Bannon suggested, Breitbart aggregated other news outlets' reports on the book, highlighted Schweitzer's interviews, flagged controversies emerging about the book's critics, complained when mainstream outlets weren't giving it sufficient attention, cheered its sales figures, pointed out comments related to the book from Democrats and Republicans, and otherwise pushed its message relentlessly. Bannon also turned Clinton Cash into the Glittering Steel film. At a screening at the 2016 Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Bannon explained that he had turned Schweitzer's book into a documentary for liberals as a way to damage Clinton's credibility. And it did do that, didn't it? And did do it with liberals, didn't it? Interesting. and conservatives, obviously, but certain liberals took it to heart. Maybe for good reason, maybe not. Just pointing it out that, for whatever reason, you decided that day you were going to believe people who ended up as the devil incarnate a few months later. So he says that it's important that as many people as possible see this film. The film's credits list Schweitzer and Rebecca Mercer as executive producers, Bannon as producer and author of the screenplay, and Glittering Steel and Bannon Film Industries as production companies. I always get a laugh out of that stuff. We've become accustomed to the idea of seeing in the credits, for instance, hey, a new Brad Pitt movie has come out. Okay, he's a legit film star, right? The reason that the movie got made is executives somewhere in the free market said, people love Brad Pitt. They're going to buy tickets to the Brad Pitt. And this is a great story. It's fantastically written, beautifully acted. No wonder. I'm going to make millions putting this out here. And very often, if you actually look at things, and I mean, this is standard practice in Hollywood, and it seems to work because they're right. People will watch whatever Brad Pitt is in, and I guess it doesn't really matter. It's not necessarily a free market thing so much as, I don't know, I found a cash cow, so I'll just keep using it. But I love seeing things like, wow, this brilliantly acted, beautifully written story starring Brad Pitt, blah, blah, blah. He's a total winner. How could you go wrong? The market was demanding it. And then you find out, Brad Pitt wrote it, or Brad Pitt's friend wrote it. Brad Pitt produced it. Brad Pitt's production company, distributed it, and Brad Pitt stars in it. And it's not just Brad Pitt. All the Hollywood stars do this all the time. You get hot enough as an actor and actress, make enough money, you can produce your own movies, which, taken from one perspective is, well, of course you're going to produce your own movies. You're rich now. You get to choose your own scripts, right? That makes sense that you're going to produce your own films. Of course, you can take control of your own career. But I don't know. We all just usually have this simplistic view of things if we're not involved in the film industry of like, well, someone wrote a fantastic script and then you take it to Hollywood and you meet with people and somebody reads it and says, I recognize this as a work of genius. I wish to produce this as a film, and then I will set about the work of casting this film by looking at who's available in Hollywood. I'll pick the best people who would do justice to this story, and then I'll pay them to act in this film, and then we'll sell the movie, and everybody makes money, and everybody gets paid. This is great. And it's kind of like that, but it's also kind of like somebody takes a script to someone, and that someone is Brad Pitt, and he reads it and he says, this is fantastic. It's a great story. I can see it in my head. Very well written. I got a couple of notes about how I'd like to change things and a few people in mind to help you rewrite this thing, but it's fantastic. And I'm thinking, I can see this film in my head already. It's a blockbuster. People are loving it. I have this idea. I got a great idea for the male lead. Brad Pitt. Well, okay, but you're Brad Pitt. But on the other hand, the writer says, amazing. What could please me more? Brad Pitt is going to be, this will ensure the success of my script. It's fantastic. So Brad Pitt says, here's what I'm thinking. I think Brad Pitt for the lead. Now, ordinarily, you'd say, in other businesses, you might say, this is a conflict of interest. This is weird. In government, you certainly would, although not anymore, I guess. How can you make that work? How can you get that past the investors who are going to say, I know you're a bankable property, but I do have a couple of questions about how it is that you came to the conclusion that Brad Pitt needs to play this role. There are other actors who are very good and might be fantastic in this role. And I question whether you came to the conclusion that Brad Pitt should play this role because you're Brad Pitt. Well, okay, that is a good question. Here's a good answer for that question. The answer is, I don't care what you think because I'm also producing this movie and you're fired. Your questions are too dumb. So now the board of directors, such as it is, of the company producing the film is actually me, and I'm starring in it, and it's beginning to look like I'm going to get my way on this thing. And by the way, because I'm producing it, I'm the one that's putting up the money to make this film a reality, to take it from paper to the screen, right? So you certainly wouldn't mind. After all, I'm paying you now, Mr. Screenwriter, who came to me with this idea. I have a couple of friends who I think could punch up this script a little bit. It's a fantastic script. Don't get me wrong. Make a great Broadway play, but for the screen, I really think, right? Okay, well, you're the big star. I guess I can't ask too many questions, besides which you're paying me. So, okay, who did you have in mind? Well, I know this fantastic scriptwriter. Very well known in the industry as a scriptwriter. Not so much. But I think he's an up and comer. He's had a hand in a lot of other films from a lot of other angles. And I think he's really trying to break out as a screenwriter. Let me bring him in. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Pitt. Thank you. No need to stand. Brad Pitt? You're Brad Pitt. Yes, I know. But again, this represents a conflict of interest. Yes, again, I'm writing the checks here. Well, why are you always writing the checks? I don't know. I don't know why I'm writing the checks for everything. You guys all gave me hundreds of millions of dollars for my previous films. Now I can write checks. Are there any other dumb questions from the peanut gallery? Nope. Get the point. You see how, well, all right. So now this is just being done in the political arena too. I don't want to get too far down that road. I already have. So let's see. Where were we with this one? Breitbart produced more than 100 articles plugging the film. Another, instance of the vertical integration that we're talking about. Breitbart ends up publishing 100 articles plugging the Clinton Cash film, which financially benefited the top two Breitbart editors and part owner Rebecca Mercer. How so? Lots of clicks because there was lots of interest in the movie, right? Yes, true, but remember that plugging the film obviously always helps the film. And when the film does well, who does well, really? The producers. They're the ones who get paid first. And, of course, there's no actors in a documentary anyway. So it's a simple enough thing to do. All right, so to divide up the money afterwards. But the producers always get paid first. So when the film does well, the producers do well. And guess what? The producers are the same people who have control over whether or not Breitbart produces hundreds of articles plugging the film. So I guess this is going to work out here. Breitbart writers produced at least 103 stories referencing the documentary, according to a Media Matters review of the site's articles tagged Clinton Cash. The reports include articles alerting their audience to broadcasts of the documentary by the website and on the conservative One America News Network. Stories touting endorsements of the film by conservatives like Fred Barnes, John Stossel, and Matt Drudge, and pieces highlighting how many times the film had been viewed online. How about that for a story, right? We will air this film online. We'll stream it on Friday at 5. That's a huge article. Another huge article on Saturday. It is reported by Breitbart News that on Friday, when an online site streamed the film, Clinton Cash, that was us, they got over 100,000 viewers. Wow. I'm so glad you reported that to me. Another story. The website, by the way, also offered $25.99 DVDs of Clinton Cash for the price of shipping and handling, as what was billed as an effort to launch Breitbart Deals, a new vertical of the Breitbart.com thing. We got Breitbart News, but guess what? How about Breitbart Deals? We got a great deal for you. This fantastic movie that's been reviewed so well by Breitbart.com is available as a special promotional offer to you. Now, it's ordinarily $25.99, $26, $25.99 will get you this a DVD of this amazing, frightening, impactful film. But wait, there's more. Through an exclusive deal, Breitbart.com. Who loves you, baby? Breitbart.com is in your corner. They know you want to see this movie. They know money's tight because the Obama economy is in a shambles. So only Breitbart has your best interest in mind. Yes, we love the film. Granted, we're biased. We want you to see it. Granted, we're biased because we also wrote it and produced it. But never mind about that. $25.99, that's an outrage. Who has money like that when you've got to pay for seeds for survival, or you've bought, I put all my money in gold. I'm building a bunker. I bought 17 AR-15s just last month. Where am I going to get $25.99 for a DVD about Clinton's Cash? that filthy, crooked Hillary who's stealing all this money. God, it burns me up. But I don't know, $25.99. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll send it to you simply for the cost of shipping and handling. And don't even get me started on the scam that shipping and handling is. But okay, handling. Putting it in an envelope? That's shipping. What handling is there? Okay, anyway. So that's Breitbart. Who brings you this fantastic, our new vertical, Breitbart Deals. Only Breitbart Deals. This is just the beginning of a new world of conservative savings. Imagine all the conservative products you could ever want brought to you simply, in some cases, for the price of shipping and handling. Not $25.99, not $24.99, not $24.98, not even $24.97, but shipping and handling, probably $20. Don't worry about it. We can make it work, right? And it's going to be a beautiful future. Imagine the things Breitbart Deals could bring to you through partnerships like this. Well, as it turns out, there have been no subsequent Breitbart Deals. That's it. The end of Breitbart Deals as a vertical. All it did was send out copies of this stupid freaking movie for the price of shipping and handling, instead of the $25.99 suggested retail price. That's another great scam. Well, the suggested retail price is $1 billion. I saved you over $1 billion just now by giving away this free crap to you that no one else will buy. Breitbart says it was essential, as an outlet, to leading the charge to promote Clinton cash. And it was, of course. The New York Times helped quite a bit there, too, unwittingly. Breitbart reported on January 18th, the impending implosion of the Clinton Foundation and the looming layoff of 22 staffers due to the closure of the Clinton Global Initiative are the result of Breitbart News and its editor-at-large, Peter Schweizer's book, Clinton Cash. According to the article, following the book's publication, Breitbart News was leading the charge in crafting the narratives behind some of the most explosive details uncovered in Clinton Cash. That was a Breitbart article of January 18th of this year, 2017. Now, mind you that in 2015 and 2016, the strategy was to say, no, Breitbart just aggregates what other people are doing. Once it was all over, they were letting everybody know, you need to congratulate us. We are the geniuses who made this work. We told you the whole time other people were doing it, and we were just watching them do it. But now we're the geniuses, now that it's over with. All right, what else? The next section was what's beyond Clinton Cash. Breitbart's web of self-dealing and conflicts of interest. Breitbart publicity campaign backed obscure Mercer Bannon film. That a report by Media Matters of, this one here, I guess, of today, Friday, April 21st. That's interesting. Self-referential. Breitbart published at least 22 articles, including 2 glowing reviews promoting Torchbearer, right? The little-watched documentary produced by Bannon and Mercer through Glittering Steel. Bannon also, this is reminiscent of our Brad Pitt discussion, wrote and directed the film. So it's a genius work, what did they say? A staggering work of heartbreaking genius. Was that the title of that book? That was a very funny title. Didn't read the book, but a very funny title. Amazing, though, that Breitbart.com would think that Breitbart's publisher's film that he wrote and directed and produced and published and distributed is so brilliant. He's a political genius, that guy. You know what would be great? If this country could just be run by a businessman. They need a businessman to run. They've got to run the government like a business. And who better than the guy that television told me was a great businessman through creative editing, Donald Trump. And wouldn't it be awesome if the guy who wrote the most brilliant films ever about politics, and I know they're the most brilliant because I read somewhere online that they were the most brilliant. I think it was at the place where he is the editor. They said he was the most brilliant guy. We should put him in as his right hand. And if he needs a right hand, we should send the person who wrote the article that said he was brilliant. Ding. That'll work. Schweitzer and Hall appear to have played a role in writing Trump's 2011 book, if you really want to go way back. Trump thanks Hall and Schweitzer, who worked together at Schweitzer's Oval Office Writers ghostwriting firm. Among the team, we'll love this one. Longtime readers are going to have a field day. Listeners will know this one. The team at Regnery Publishing. Oh my God. Honey, come home. I have to talk to you. Remember, of course, that for many years my wife worked for what was once the parent company of Regnery Publishing, Phillips Publishing, but they spun that separate division off a long time ago and have since become considerably less political in their operations. But those of you who know the background, it's not her fault. She's not conservative. Neither am I. I'm not a plant. Don't let Louise Mensch know. Oh my God, I'll be branded a Russian operative within a minute. But I didn't realize that one. So that's interesting. Good call here. Schweitzer and Hall are the ghostwriters on the 2011 book Make America Number One Again. That sounds familiar because didn't that become like the name of the super PAC that the Mercers ended up funding? That's rather amazing. Hall has been previously identified as the ghostwriter of the book, and Trump provides a testimonial on the website of Hall's Winton Hall and Company Breitbart articles about, I guess that should have been there is a period there. It's just after company and co, period. And I mistook that for abbreviation of company, not the end of the sentence. So let's see. Trump provides a testimonial on Winton Hall and Company's website. Breitbart articles about Trump do not disclose that two of the site's top editors stand to gain financially from Trump's political success. That's because they all stand to gain financially from Trump's political success, and it would be redundant to say so, I guess. In a July 2015 post, Bannon praised the smart and serious bestseller shortly before Trump entered the presidential race, writing that the book provides Trump's penetrating, serious, and detailed enunciation of his political philosophy and policy views, without disclosing the role that the two Breitbart editors played in its production. Interesting, too, that we keep hearing that it's Rebecca Mercer is the one who introduced Bannon to Trump. It sounds like they were pretty well connected to begin with, but okay. Bannon and Schweitzer used Breitbart to promote GAI's attempt to defuse Trump's Russia ties. I don't think I really have highlighted this angle. As the Trump campaign was hounded by stories pointing to Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election and the campaign's friendly stance toward that nation, GAI released a report. And remember, when they release reports, they're an institute, for God's sake. They released a report claiming that a top Hillary Clinton aide had his own Russia ties. Therefore, they don't have any, I guess. Or look over there. Bannon and Schweitzer promoted the report in a Breitbart article and on Bannon's Breitbart radio show the very next day. 2 weeks later, Bannon joined the Trump campaign. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Breitbart has promoted the GAI report's claims in at least 9 articles since then. GAI has spent $200,000, in fact, an additional $200,500 on Breitbart ads. Who owns Breitbart? Who pays for Breitbart? Well, our ad revenue. We're free market, goddammit. We don't take handouts. GAI has spent $200,000 on ads on Breitbart. GAI paid them $102,500 in 2013 and $98,000 in 2015 for advertising, according to IRS disclosures made due to Bannon's conflict of interest as executive chairman of both entities. Schweitzer's book, Extortion, How Politicians Extract Your Votes, Buy Votes, and Line Their Own Pockets, was released in 2013, while Schweitzer's Clinton Cash was released in 2015. Guess what the ads were about? Ads on Breitbart for the book, alongside, of course, editorial content saying that the book is awesome. That raises some issues all by itself. And, of course, how about the hilariousness of Schweitzer writing a book about how people extract cash from you in political operations to line their own pockets? Breitbart has helped promote other GAI and Schweitzer research in more than 100 articles by Hall, who is, of course, the hired hand publicist for GAI and also writes for Breitbart. According to Media Matters Review, Breitbart has published dozens of press release-style articles promoting extortion and Schweitzer's 2011 book, Throw Them All Out. What a great title. As well as virtually every GAI report on topics including, but not limited to, Obama's attendance at presidential daily briefs, the number of Obama meetings with then Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius. Is that Is that a problem? I don't think it should be. Purported Russian ties to top aides to Hillary Clinton. Film tax credits. Grr, that must make them mad. Film tax credits. That's pretty amazing. I wonder if they were availing themselves of any film tax credits. Or maybe they were in praise of them, perhaps. Campaign finance documents, purported corporate benefits from food stamps. Justice Department prosecutions of the finance industry, and 2 specials from Fox News' Sean Hannity featuring Schweitzer and Bannon. Hall, Bannon, and Schweitzer all actively participated in the public relations campaign for an organization that has paid them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then they include even another collection of headlines, one is that we read before, from Breitbart articles, all authored by Breitbart managing editor and GAI communications strategist Hall, about all those products. Well, I had anticipated getting to some other stories today, but man, was I caught up in this one. This one was really exciting, and I hope it was interesting and revealing to you. I think we actually uncovered a lot of new detail about these stories, and hey, I'm glad we did. Let's see. I mean, in the few minutes left, there are definitely a number of other things that I think we ought to mention, one of which is that perhaps before we're even off the air in like 10 minutes here, is Jason Chaffetz going to be in Congress anymore? The Washington Examiner, which I would ordinarily never go to, you may have noticed that the activity following his mention on yesterday's show, I don't believe that we did anything about it. I know we didn't. But I like to hint at it because I don't know. Bannon's making a mint, pretending he's at the helm of everything. Anyway, you know the story. Chaffetz said he wasn't going to run again. Then it kind of became, well, maybe I'll resign even before my term is over. And then it became, I might be out of here by Friday. That's what it says in the Washington Examiner. Utah Republicans expect Chaffetz to resign. And word is that, yeah, he may even resign like today, which is amazing, especially given that Trump keeps telling everybody, anonymously, apparently. Everybody thinks that, not everybody, a lot of people think he's the anonymous source. Although, how could you even do that? How could you write with a straight face that an anonymous White House source tells you when it's the president? I don't know. Don't normalize that. Anyway, the White House anonymous sources are saying, yeah, we're going to have a vote on Wednesday on the new health care bill. Chaffetz might not even be there. I mean, having people drop out of Congress ahead of the next vote seems like a pretty good recipe for disaster, but it's probably just the one vote. Anyway, everyone wants to know what would drive him to do this, and the speculation is as wild and varied as you might imagine, and nobody has any goddamn idea what would drive him to resign like right away, right now. It's amazing. What a weird development. So there's that one. Let's see. There are some fantastic stories that I know we can't get to that we hinted at yesterday and really should have been the follow-up today. We began discussing, what was it? We hinted at the possibility of more discussion about the NSC staffer who used to work for or with Devin Nunes, who engineered the display of the documents to Nunes that he said were so explosive, and then everybody else said, no, they don't say anything about, like what you were saying, including the accusation by the president that Susan Rice had committed some kind of a crime. This particular staffer I had mentioned to you before, and the fact that he was being protected in the White House in all of his fights. Ezra Cohen Watnick. I wanted to read one of the, maybe I'll just give you this stuff as weekend reading, and if you don't get to it, maybe we'll get to it on Monday. But he's been the guy at the center of all of this, and he's causing enormous problems, including the diversion of a huge chunk of the intelligence community to try and find or drum up some kind of crap that'll make it look like the president isn't nuts. But he is nuts, and apparently so is Ezra Cohen Watnick. And every time somebody says, we really need to get this nutball out of here, he came in with Flynn. Why isn't everybody who came in with Flynn out? We just don't demand that, I guess. And maybe we need to be louder about that. And maybe we thought it was hopeless because initially Bannon and Kushner both protected Watnick. Now, Bannon's protection is now near worthless, but Kushner's, I guess, is still pretty valuable. But maybe he could be convinced that Now that Bannon's out, he should get out on that guy too. But as it turns out, there's another casualty in the intelligence community. The CIA liaison to the White House has been forced out after a continuing battle with this Ezra Cohen Watnick character. And like major league players in the intelligence community keep going down at this 30-year-old's behest. Love to know what's going on there. Only other thing I can really fit in here, I just wanted to note for everybody for the record, I thought this was interesting too. Christina Wilkie picking up on this one. By the way, she's working on a fantastic project. She got a hold of the inaugural committee's report of where all their donations came from. Mind you, there is never going to be a report about where those donations go to. Never required. I imagine he's just going to steal a great deal of it. But she's crowdsourcing the investigation of who are these people and corporations, because a lot of them seem to be, she said, fronts. She's finding a lot of corporate entities giving $1 million or $100,000, and she can find no record of their existence online. Why would you even bother when you can give more or less unlimited as an individual? I don't know. Great project. Help her out with that. That's not even what I meant to talk about. This other observation of hers, very interesting. The White House puts out a press release that says Ivanka Trump is going to Berlin. Not on a vacation, but as a government employee, as a envoy on behalf of the government of the United States. This is really rather amazing. Ivanka Trump, and look at how they refer to her, first daughter and assistant to the president. They don't actually, they don't actually say just special assistant to the president, which is an even higher ranking title, is going to there. It's Ivanka Trump, first daughter, will be visiting Berlin. And David Frum, of all people, helped to clarify things. He made a fantastic point. If we're still confused about why it is that Trump isn't even bothering to nominate people at lower levels in the State Department, including ambassadors and undersecretaries of state and across the board in all the executive agencies, why not do that? It's not just because Democrats are holding things up or would hold things up if he were to nominate them. I mean, it all starts with him. You got to nominate him first. But he made a great point. One of the side benefits, actually, believe it or not, of not naming an official envoy, an ambassador to anywhere, including Germany, is that without that person in place as the person to turn to as the authoritative voice speaking for the United States of America in Germany, when Ivanka Trump, first daughter, arrives in Berlin, that's the nearest thing that the government in Berlin is likely to have as the authoritative voice of the government of the United States. He's just transformed Ivanka into acting ambassador to Germany or wherever she goes. And since wherever she goes, she's also cutting deals for trademarks and her own businesses and her dad's businesses. Extraordinarily dangerous emolument situation. Great point by Frum, even though Frum in general should at least be taken with a grain of salt. We'll say that. That way I'll wrap that one up and I can get over to what's coming up next on the after show, because that's equally important. Let's get to that before we cut out of here on Friday. The Energy Department is denying funds for already approved grants. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey signed a bill to preempt non-existent gun restrictions by local governments, and the Wisconsin Supreme Court, a wholly owned subsidiary of Koch Industries, rejected a request from 56 judges to address judicial campaign
From Daily
cash.
Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
How about this for the last half of the after show? Karen Handel, the Georgia GOP candidate in the runoff to fill Tom Price's House seat, is a pioneer in voter suppression. And after receiving 94% of its funding from taxpayers, the California State Auditor discovers Los Angeles' largest charter school chain has raised millions in dark money to fight a union drive. All of that next.